Hello everyone, I'm back with a new top 10, and this week it's my top 10 Doctor Who monsters. Now over the years we've been introduced to a wide variety of alien designs, but which do I think is the scariest of them all? Watch on to find out. In 10th place I've put the Silence, or at least the creatures that follow the religious order of the Silence, and although they only ever appeared in series 6 and also the time of the Doctor, I think they deserve to be placed here because they're just so scary. I mean, the juxtaposition of the ugly kind of freaky face with the familiar but creased suit is quite disturbing. I also think it helps that they're based on the classic Roswell alien design that we've had wired into our heads, for all of our lives. They also have a very creepy, hissing voice, and the noises that they make are quite disturbing as well. You know, the ones they make in the background when they're not talking. So the Silence didn't appear in that many episodes, and you could even say they weren't actually monsters. Well, not all of them at least. But I think they deserve to be placed here in 10th place because they're just so freaky. Now in 9th place I've put the Ice Warriors, and the reason for this really is first of all they have this gorgeous, intricate kind of reptilian armour, which is just beautiful, you know. It's very intimidating as well how they're very tall and stand over you, and it protects this calculating and ruthless creature that we obviously saw in Cold War for the first time. I also love the mythology and culture. It's fascinating. All the stuff about the ranks of the Ice Warriors and the Ice Lords and Generals and Grand Marshals. I find that fascinating. And another thing I find fascinating about the Ice Warriors is their link to Mars. Obviously they came from Mars, and if you see my top 10 episodes, you'll know that I really love the Waters of Mars and the Flood, the monster in that story that are placed slightly higher up on this list. But I really like the idea that the Ice Warriors had to flee from Mars because of the Flood, or at least they froze it away on Mars, and then all these years later, obviously Bowie Base 1 came, and the infection got released, so I find that very interesting as well. But apart from that, the Ice Warriors, it's a fantastic design, and I really, really love it. I'm a big fan of the Silurians, a race I've put in 8th place here. The real reason for this is just because the idea of a species that lived on Earth before us is so genius, and it makes for some really interesting stories. I think because they're so similar to humans, and also because they have this desire to reconquer the planet that is rightly theirs, it makes really interesting stories, often showing up humans as the villains, you know, that the tables are turned, which makes it really interesting. I do like both the classic and new designs, they're both stunning and completely believable, but if I had to pick, I would pick the new ones, just because they look slightly less ridiculous and more human, which emphasises their similarities to humankind, but also allows that human connection, you know, they can talk to humans and look them in the eye, which I think is really important. So the Silurians are definitely one of my favourite Doctor Who species. In 7th place I've put the Sontarans. It's an absolutely classic design, you know, with the military armour and the little potato head on top. And they have this very scary obsession with war, which is more apparent in some episodes than others. They haven't been quite as scary recently, and I think that's because of Strax really. He's the only Sontaran that we've seen recently. Now don't get me wrong, I do love Strax. He does provide some very good humour in quite dark stories really, and I'm sure he's great for the kids as well. But having said that, a traditional Sontaran story would be nice at some point in the near future, just to restore their status as ruthless warriors really, you know, to make them as scary as they once were, because I think the Sontarans have this real potential to be quite scary, but they've not really had an opportunity to do so recently. But having said all of that, they're still one of my favourite alien designs. In 6th place I put the Zygons. I absolutely love the design of the Zygons, you know, they're so beautiful and rubbery and fungal looking. On the one hand, all the goo and suckers is quite scary, but on the other, you want to kind of go and squeeze the suckers and all the alien tech and pods and things. They're definitely the definitive shapeshifters as far as Doctor Who is concerned, and like the Silurians, because of their peace treaty on Earth now, they've got lots of potential for use as not only monsters, but also victims of human behaviour. In Series 9's The Zygon Inversion, we were introduced to a Zygon who was innocent, but he was being made a bit of a spectacle, and he ended up killing himself because he didn't feel safe on Earth. So that makes for quite an interesting dynamic, I think. However, most Zygons are completely menacing and really evil, and it's fantastic to see characters such as Clara be revealed as Zygons in the same story last year. And you can always play that game in Zygon stories to try and work out which humans are shapeshifters in disguise, if any. So the Zygons are very interesting, and definitely one of my favourite races in Doctor Who. Now in 5th place here we've got the Daleks. Maybe you were expecting them to be a little higher up, but I will elaborate in a little bit. But the overall design of the Dalek is timeless, and it's allowed for fantastic livery colour schemes over the years. My favourites include the Dead Planet design from the 60s, the Planet of the Daleks Supreme, the 2005 Bronze redesign, and the Red and Gold Supremes seen in Series 4 and Series 9. So the Daleks are only in 5th place. I think they started off as quite a terrifying concept in the 60s, but they're somewhat less scary today, I think. Having said that, I don't really like it when people say, oh, the Daleks are less scary and they need to be made scary again, because I think it's quite natural how they're not scary anymore. The modern audience is not the same as the audience from the 60s, and in the 60s, obviously, there was the recent memory of the Nazis in the minds of the audience, and that's just not present in the audience today. It's a completely different audience, and I think because the world is so much bigger, and today we're not fazed by things as much, the Daleks have quite naturally lost their fear factor, and the comparison between them and the Nazis is less clear. However, I'll still always think of them as one of the scariest Doctor Who monsters, just because of those episodes in the 60s and how scary it must have been as a viewer to watch that with the memory of World War II in your mind. In fourth place, I put the Vashta Nerada. Such a unique concept for an alien race. I mean, they're absolutely terrifying. You know, the concept of a helmet light going out and then it coming back on, revealing an animated skull, is just disturbing, really. As I say, they're quite unique because they are in fact small paws present in the books of the library, but obviously they use humans as their slaves, and I think very few species use humans as a medium for communication so effectively. The idea of using shadows is also very freaky. You know, having two shadows and not knowing where the other one is coming from. I would definitely like to see these creatures return one day, and seeing as those Series 10 is Moffat's last, it would be great to see the Vashta Nerada come back, as they're definitely one of his most scary creations. In third place, I put the Weeping Angels. Now, they are absolutely petrifying. The image of a screaming angel is just so horrific, and the way that they move so quickly as well. It's absolutely terrifying, and if I was confronted by one in real life, I would probably be very, very scared. It's a great example of what Moffat does best, taking an everyday concept or object and making it scary. In this case, statues. There are also so many other interesting concepts to do with the angels, such as sending their victims back in time to feed on the time energy, feeding off the crack, the thing about an image of an angel being an angel, which prevents you from using cameras to look at them, the battery farm idea introduced in The Angels Take Manhattan, and lots more other things as well. And just like the Vashta Nerada, really, it would be great to see them return again in Moffat's final series. I seem to recall that in the past he said he was done with them. However, I still think there's more that can be done with the Weeping Angels, and it would definitely make for a very creepy story in Series 10. In second place, I've put the Cybermen. Now, the idea of human organs being replaced by spare parts, one by one, is just so horrific, and what's more is that the Cybermen are converted humans, and I think that's right, if they think it makes us stronger and better, having no emotions. And of course that's wrong. It's an absolutely terrifying concept, and because the Cybermen are converted humans, there's that human connection which makes them more scary than the Daleks in my opinion, even though they started off as converted Mondasians on Earth's twin planet. They've had a wide variety of fantastic designs. My favourites include the original 10th Planet design, the Invasion Cybermen, and the 2013 redesign. Although the most recent Cybermen, they do look awesome and very kind of streamlined, and I love their blank faces, but they aren't quite as scary as the classic Cybermen, I think, a little bit like what's going on with the Daleks. The new concepts such as the faster movements and the constant upgrading don't really help, although I do like how their vulnerability to gold has been reintroduced. So I think there's definitely more that could be done to make the Cybermen scary in the modern era, but certainly in the classic era, in the 60s, you know, very much like the Daleks, they're absolutely terrifying, and the overall concept of the Cybermen as well, well, when you think about it, it's just so scary. And you guessed it, in first place is the Flood, from my favourite Doctor Who story of all time, The Waters of Mars. They're definitely the most disturbing looking and terrifying alien race of all, in my opinion, and the only one that I've really been scared of. You know, The Waters of Mars is the only episode of Doctor Who really that I've only been slightly scared at. You know, I'm not scared easily by television, especially Doctor Who. But the Flood are just so disturbing, and even to look at, they're just horrific. In fact, it's the only time in the show's history, to my knowledge, that changes have had to be made to an alien design on set, because I recall reading that the Flood were too scary, and Russell T Davies himself actually decided to change the eyes to make them less scary. But nevertheless, the eyes, they're blank, and the cracked mouths as well. I think those elements in particular make the face just so terrifying. Not to mention the fact that they're constantly spouting out toxic water, which can infect you by just one drop. I think the idea of being infected by just one drop of water is so powerful and really, really effective. You know, you'd be terrified if one of those creatures was chasing you, spouting out this water, knowing that being touched by just one drop will turn you into a monster just like them. And it would definitely take one hell of a design to push this one out of first place, in my opinion. First place is very well deserved for the Flood. It's much more visually scary than other popular monsters such as the Weeping Angels and Daleks and Cybermen, and for that reason, it's my favourite alien race and most scary race in Doctor Who's history. So thank you very much for watching my top 10. Please comment your lists below. I'd love to see which monsters you think are the scariest. Now, next week I will not be returning for a top 10. In fact, I won't be doing a top 10 for some time now. Basically, I have decided to brush up on my reviewing skills in anticipation for the Christmas special Doctor Who and Series 10 next year. I want to be able to publish reviews of them a day or 2 days after they've been aired. But I've not really done much reviewing before. I've done a little bit last year with my classic review series. But I want to kind of get a bit more up to date and look at some modern episodes. There's also no Doctor Who this year apart from the Christmas special, as I've already mentioned. So for that reason, I've decided to rewatch the whole of Series 9, exactly a year after each episode was broadcast, or at least in the same week that it was broadcast. I'm actually planning on releasing the reviews on the 1-year anniversary of each episode. But the reason for this really is because I've seen Series 9 of Doctor Who, I've seen it get lots of praise, but I've also seen it get lots of slack, in particular episodes such as The Girl Who Died, Sleep No More, and Hellbent. You know, it's a notorious episode for getting hate from the Doctor Who fandom. And I want to kind of look back over Series 9 and give a new perspective and try and defend it really. Because for me, it's one of the best Doctor Who series of all time. And I'm quite passionate about it, you know. I've rewatched all these episodes lots of times. And I think the story arc and each individual episode as well, all the elements that make the series up are so strong, and I have very few flaws with it overall. And for some reason that's quite a controversial opinion. But to hear me elaborate about these opinions more, do tune in next Monday when I'll be releasing the first retrospect review in my Defending Series 9 series, and it'll be on The Magician's Apprentice. So thank you very much for watching this video, I hope you're looking forward to that, and I will see you next week for that retrospect review. So thank you very much for watching, I'll see you then, and bye for now.